Okay, guys. Sorry. I'm trying to get set up. Okay. So there's a lot going on in the background. But tonight I decided to go with a mystery. I usually don't like the genre mystery books, but this one was really, really good. It's called Misty Gordon and the Mystery of the Ghost Pirates um, by Kim Kennedy. And I always think that books that have maps are really good. Any fantasy, mystery, fairy tales that have maps, they tend to be really good books, at least in my opinion. So, chapter 1. Here we go. Fanny Belcher's Things. Mr. and Mrs. Gordon liked it when people died. Not that they were bizarre or unfilling, it's just that the Gordons' business depended on death. You see, they owned the dearly departed antique store, a shop filled with the musty old furniture of the recently deceased. Perhaps it was a bit gloomy and creepy, the way the Gordons made their living, but they didn't mind. Rather, they fancied themselves the best in the business, and the fastest. As soon as someone bit the dust, the Gordons would purchase his or her stuff. Their motto: we bite the bucket as soon as you kick it. In fact, to learn of a death in the historic little sea town of Ashburn, one only had to spy the Gordon's company truck traveling down the street, faded green with D.E.A.D painted on its side. The former ice cream truck, which still played its music, was quite the town spectacle. Curious kids on bikes would follow the truck, all the while guessing where it might stop. Who died? They would wonder. Was it Mr. Fulton, the Cat Hatter? Or was it Hazel Munger, the freaky hermit? One Saturday morning in October, blaring its warped tunes, the truck attracted its largest group ever. 20 kids trailed behind it, pedaling down shady streets, through sleepy neighborhoods, and past ancient cemeteries. Finally, the truck came to a sputtering stop in front of a weathered mansion. The huge place had been the home of Fanny Belcher, the richest old lady in Ashburn. And lucky Mr. Gordon was the first in line to pick over her belongings. He could barely contain his excitement as he hopped out of his truck. He nodded at the group of sweaty, panting kids, all of them waiting to see who would answer the late Fanny Belcher's door. Maybe, they hoped, it would be the ghost of Fanny Belcher herself. Hurry up and ring the doorbell, yelled Hector Figg, a freckle-faced boy. He swayed impatiently atop his banana seat. We don't have all day. Shh, said Mr. Gordon, smoothing his shirt over his round belly. Hector, you kids go on home. This isn't a sideshow. Have a little respect. Mr. Gordon grabbed the mammoth door knocker. After a few clanks, the door creaked open, revealing a long-faced man in a black uniform. Yes, wheezed the butler, glaring at Mr. Gordon. Who are you? I'm your dead, said Mr. Gordon brightly. The butler danced backward, a look of horror on his face. Dead? That's right, said Mr. Gordon, sticking his foot inside the doorway. It stands for Deceased Estate and Antiques Dealer. I'm Frank Gordon. I'm here to purchase Mrs. Belcher's things. Oh, of course, said the butler. Come in. Mr. Gordon bolted inside and slammed the door. The kids rushed to the windows and peered through the broken shutters. They snickered, watching Mr. Gordon's bulky figure lurch about the dreary place, picking up chairs, examining sofas, and rummaging through drawers. He looks like a big rat, said Hector. Yeah, added another kid, smacking gum. A rat that just found the biggest hunk of cheese in the world. That evening, his trunk crammed with Fanny Belcher's stuff, Mr. Gordon squeezed himself behind the steering wheel and began his drive home. He had really scored this time. He couldn't wait to see the look on his wife's face when she saw what he'd brought. Humming along to the ice cream truck's music, Mr. Gordon turned onto cobblestoned Anchor Street. He smiled broadly as he pulled in front of his little white house nestled among crimson maple trees. I'm back, he announced, bounding into his house, where Mrs. Gordon sat, painting her toenails. Mr. Gordon held up a lumpy sack. Guess what I've got in here? What? Squealed Mrs. Gordon. Is it something from rich old Fanny Belcher's house? Right you are, bellowed Mr. Gordon, pulling out what looked like a dead animal. He tossed it to his wife. A mink coat? She gasped, putting it on. Belcher never went anywhere without it, said Mr. Gordon. And I can see why, said Mrs. Gordon, elated. Oh, what luxury! She purred, modeling the coat. Such marvelous cuffs and deep pockets. Around the couch, she twirled in the coat, dropping nasty tufts of fur on the floor. Shielding his face from the flying fur was James, the Gordons' 8-year-old son. Gross! James gagged. That thing is shedding. Expensive furs are like that, coughed Mr. Gordon. They have to get used to their new owners. That's right, agreed Mrs. Gordon, burying her plump face in the musky mink. James, said Mr. Gordon, digging around in the bag, I've got something for you, too. He handed James a real stuffed squirrel. Cool, said James, staring in amazement at the rodent. Its face was frozen in a strange smile, its 2 yellow teeth sticking out from crinkled whiskers. While James stroked his petrified friend and Mrs. Gordon tripped about in her molting coat, Mr. Gordon began feeling around in his bag again. Observing all of this in total shock and embarrassment was Misty Gordon. She sat dumbfounded on the couch, sinking lower and lower into its cushions. She couldn't help thinking of how much her dad looked like a scatterbrained Santa Claus, handing out gifts from a sack he lost 100 years ago and just found again. Misty had watched this same drama unfold over and over throughout her entire life. But still, even after 11 years, she'd never grown accustomed to it. Wondering what her dad might pull out of that bag always filled her with dread. Last but not least, said Mr. Gordon, pausing dramatically, with his hand in the bag, I've got something for Misty. Misty cringed. You know how you've been begging for your own phone? He said. Well, feast your eyes on this. With that, he pulled out a heavy black phone from the 1940s and handed it to Misty. Your very first phone, said Mr. Gordon, beaming. And with a little luck, maybe I can get the thing to work. Great, Misty moaned, looking at the phone's frayed cord. So I got a dead lady's broken phone. What a dud, chuckled James. But they can't all be winners. Isn't that right, Dad? Misty grabbed the phone, shoved James out of the way, and went upstairs to her room, shutting her door. She looked around and sighed. Everything she had was antique. A rickety 4-poster bed leaned in the corner with a faded patchwork quilt atop it, and Misty's book satchel, an old leather mailbag, hanging from one of its posts. Yellow lace curtains fluttered in the open window, under which her desk stood, looking like something George Washington might have used as a boy. Another item for the Misty Museum, she said sarcastically, setting the phone on her desk. Too bad the phone didn't work. She would have called her best friend, Yoshiko, and told her all about the latest craziness in the Gordon household. After all, if there was anybody who understood craziness, it was Yoshi, as everyone called her. Her dad was Dr. Yamamoto, the famous psychiatrist who ran Ashcombe's insane asylum. A chill wind passed through the room, and Misty shivered. She pushed the window shut and then opened her closet and grabbed a fuzzy wool sweater, one of the many that her dad had given her. It was ugly, but at least it was warm. She tried to wrestle it on, but the thing had become so speckled with holes that she couldn't figure out which one was for her head. Forget it, she said, exasperated. With a crackle of static, Misty yanked off the sweater, sending her brown hair flying out in all directions. She straightened her glasses, disgusted. A few vintage clothes were cool, but an entire wardrobe of the stuff, what she wouldn't give for something new. But that required money. I'm just going to have to do more babysitting, she decided, putting the sweater back. Just then, a long clang sound behind Misty, causing her to jump. She whirled around, expecting to see James with one of his obnoxious, noisy toys, only to find no one there. Misty glanced about. Ha ha, very funny, James, she said, crossing her arms. I know you're hiding in here. An even louder clang sounded, followed by a strange rustle. Misty squinted suspiciously at the dark space beneath her bed. In a flash, she tossed the bedsquirt aside and looked beneath the saggy mattress. A couple of old dolls peered back from the gloom, but not James. A string of dull thumps erupted, sending Misty's head shooting back out from under the bed. "What is that?" she said, irritated. Then Misty's eyes fell upon Fanny Belcher's telephone, and her mouth dropped open. "No way," she whispered in astonishment as she realized that the noises were coming from the broken phone. Noises that sounded more like beatings than rings. Noises that sounded as if something inside the phone were trying to get out. Misty ventured shakily toward the phone and picked it up to have a look. Suddenly, the phone jerked in her hands and its underside panel popped loose. Out from it dropped something small and dark. Misty yelped as the object landed on her desk and skittered toward the window. In a blur, it flew at the window pane, hitting the glass with a terrible smack. It flapped wildly for a moment and then fluttered miserably to the floor. For a brief moment, Misty thought the motionless clump was a bird that had somehow gotten trapped in the phone. But when Misty crouched over it, she gasped to discover that it wasn't a bird at all. It was a book. And I'm going to stop there. Guys, Misty Gordon and the Mystery of the Ghost Pirates is really, really, really good. I was still in the first chapter. Don't get scared about how long a chapter is or how long a book is. If you just stick with it, um, they end up getting really good. So Misty Gordon and the Mystery of the Ghost Pirates by Kim Kennedy. Check it out, any library, or even buy it on Amazon. I'll plug that in for them. Hope you have a great night.